It was a strange day in the office of a veterinarian doctor. Kelly. If it would have just been a raccoon showing up at the door, it would have been a strange day already. But the fact that the raccoon was carrying a wounded kitten made it even more bizarre. There turned out to be no time to waste, as this was the beginning of every veterinarian's nightmare. Dr. Kelly realized he had to find out where they came from after examining them. And as soon as Dr. Kelly found their home, he turned pale. In all his years, he'd never seen something like this. This was pure cruelty, and he felt even lucky that he was able to rescue the raccoon and kitten in the first place. Dr. Kelly's work was to get animals as soon as possible back to their home, or even find them a home. But what he was looking at now was the furthest from a home. He called it a nightmare for animals, while he made sure never to let the kitten and raccoon go back there. Dr. Kelly didn't need long to realize he couldn't handle this on his own. He called the police right away. They came in shortly after that and thanked him for his bravery. Things could have gotten a lot worse without Dr. Kelly interfering. But what was this place? Who was responsible for this cruelty? And why were the animals in such an alarming shape when they showed up at Dr. Kelly's practice? Before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Veterinarian Kelly had had his practice in the west of the city for years, where a plague of raccoons had been prevalent for several months. It was therefore not a surprising sight to suddenly see a raccoon enter the practice that day. But this was no ordinary case, because Dr. Kelly is immediately alarmed by his assistant, because she simply does not know how to chase the raccoon away. The raccoon seems determined to stay, and that seems to have everything to do with the kitten. What was going on with this strange bond between the raccoon and the kitten? Dr. Kelly sees no other option than to cancel his appointment and postpone his consultation hours. He goes to the waiting room where the raccoon is still. Then he sees the kitten, and it's not long before he realizes what might be going on, because the kitten seems very weak, possibly even injured. Dr. Kelly tries to get closer, knowing he has to be careful. He then sees that the kitten has a necklace on, and that this kitten must therefore belong to someone. He doesn't pay too much attention to it, which turns out to be a mistake. The kitten is indeed very weak, if only because it is so thin. Dr. Kelly calmly takes the kitten away from the raccoon, telling his assistant to close the door so the raccoon cannot escape. Unfortunately, things don't go according to plan, because as soon as Dr. Kelly gets the kitten, the raccoon makes a run for it. Dr. Kelly's assistant doesn't make it to the door in time, and the raccoon seems to get away. They try to track down the curious raccoon, but fail. They then shift their attention to the kitten. The kitten needs immediate help. What could have happened to this kitten? Who or what had neglected this kitten so much? And was the raccoon the great hero who realized the kitten needed help? Or was it a strange coincidence? Dr. Kelly couldn't answer these questions now, but the truth was imminent. Dr. Kelly searches for the owner through the kitten's collar, only to find out that the owner lives a town away. Could that be why the kitten is in such a condition after having traveled such a distance? Or would these data simply not be correct? Then Dr. Kelly notices something about the owner's profile. The profile does not show any further information. Only the city, name, and age of the kitten and breed are listed. The profile is otherwise completely anonymous. Dr. Kelly had seen missing cats in his practice often enough to realize something strange was going on here. Unfortunately, he was not far off. Dr. Kelly's first attempt to solve the case is to contact the owner. He realizes the risks of this, and realizes that the kitten may not be safe at all with this owner. But his curiosity gets the better of him. He calls the owner. "Hello." The phone rings dozens of times, and only at the last does someone answer. It's a deep voice that doesn't pronounce his name. He just says, "Hello?" He sounds desperate, even confused. Dr. Kelly repeatedly asks him about the kitten, but he only gets a few mumbles in response. He assumes he was wrongly connected. He passes the information on to his assistant and asks her to place the kitten in their shelter for as long as it takes to get the animal healthy again. Little did Dr. Kelly know, he wasn't wrongly connected at all, and it wouldn't be long before he met this curious individual. A few days pass at the veterinary practice without anything remarkable happening. Then, one Wednesday morning, the raccoon returns to practice. Dr. Kelly immediately recognizes the raccoon, as it is again not shy and appears to have the same stripes in its fur. But there is something different about the raccoon this time. It moves slower and has less energy anyway, and even looks skinnier than last time. It has a timid attitude when Dr. Kelly approaches, and it doesn't take long for the vet to realize that this critter also needs help. Dr. Kelly sees the obvious patterns between the two incidents and realizes that a human may have been behind it all. How else could both the raccoon and the kitten appear so neglected? It could happen to a kitten, but a raccoon can normally take care of itself so well. And so Dr. Kelly decides to take care of the raccoon as well. He starts with a small investigation and finds out that the raccoon is completely dehydrated. That was also the case with the kitten, and Dr. Kelly is aware that there is intent involved. But why? For what purpose could someone be so cruel to these poor animals? A few hours later, just before the practice closes, something strange happens. A man with his hood up keeps walking past the windows. He seems to want to look inside, but is too nervous to actually do so. Dr. Kelly asks his assistant to address the man. After briefly exchanging a few words with the strange man, the assistant comes back in and calls Dr. Kelly over. She says that the man outside was barely audible and mostly muttered. Dr. Kelly sees an equation and realizes he has to do something. He runs outside, where he sees the man boarding a bus. He knows the bus line, so he knows roughly where to go. He sprints to his car and gets in. The chase ensued, and nothing could have prepared Dr. Kelly for what he was about to see. He tries to get closer to the bus, which is not easy for him. Fortunately, he has a sufficient view of the bus to see when the man might get off. The bus is approaching the terminus, and the man still hasn't got off. Where were they going? Dr. Kelly is now finally close behind the bus and knows that the bus route is almost over. He waits tensely until he sees the man get out and speed into a street. Dr. Kelly immediately gives chase, hoping he doesn't lose the man in the meantime. Dr. Kelly has sight of the man and chases him to his house. Once there, Dr. Kelly sees that the man has all kinds of animals in his house, under bad conditions. He is terrified and immediately calls the police. The man is arrested, and the animals are all rescued.